Chapter 9. Codependence. When I started in general practice in 1947, I knew absolutely nothing about the way in which men and women related to each other in marriage. My own marriage was not working very well, so I was thrust into the complications of family dynamics really as a virgin. Looking back at some of the loneliest stuff I wrote at that time made me remember that even in those days I became very concerned by the question of dominance in a relationship, because it seemed to me quite wrong that one partner should dominate another. I think I was noticing the mote in the eye of the other before removing the plank in my own. Even so, I have found that the dominance of one partner over the other is common in marriage. By a process of projection, I would see my own troubles mirrored in the world outside. However, the interest in the dynamics of relationship remained, and when I began as a psychotherapist to encounter the victims of abusive relationships, I have found myself working in fertile ground. The family histories of the dominant, abusive husbands I encountered in those early days bore great similarities. There are two kinds of unloving mothers. There are those who blackmail their children by saying, in effect, "I do love you, as you know, and I will know you love me if you behave the way I want you to. And if you don't live up to my expectations, I will either stop loving you or leave you." For a naturally unruly boy, this is a surefire guilt producer, and can be almost guaranteed to bring a child to heel. This is the behaviour of a woman who dislikes her child and pretends that she does not, lying to her child as well as to herself. The more usual way for an unloving mother to behave is just to be indifferent to her child and his activities, getting on with her own hedonistic life and letting him get on with his, be they lawful or otherwise. The effect on the child is the same in each case, the arousal of the deep rage, which is the inevitable and indeed genetically determined consequence of a lack of bonding in infancy. What happens to that rage depends on the reception it gets when it is acted out. The blackmailing mother will use it as an excuse to fly her true colours, and make it clear to her child that if there is any more of this, she is off. She will be gone forever, which, for an unmothered child, is the most terrifying of all threats, and so the rage is buried, not dissolved, merely buried. In later life it will either explode destructively at someone else, or if it does not, it will probably its possessor, for nothing is more dangerous to physical health than buried rage. Reader's note, this sentence was read as written. End of note.
When that child becomes man, he is, one might say, Philip Larkind. Because of his lousy relationship with his mother, he is a misogynist. Because he is underloved, he has a craving for intimacy. Never having experienced affection, he knows nothing of it, nor, indeed, has he any concept of it. In the sexual arena, however, you can experience both intimacy and a feeling of power over women he really hates, his role model being his mother. He is a jealous man. If he has a relationship, he wants all of his partner. The way his mind compensates for the appalling absence of maternal love is to make him want to have all of her, to metaphorically consume her. He gets upset and either sulks or is angry with her if she goes out to meet a member of her family or a friend, with the result that her social life gradually contracts. One would expect such a man to have a voracious sexual appetite. I gathered that he was no great shakes in bed. Another curious thing the mind does is to make possessions a substitute for love, so that many of these sad men are collectors. I know 3 who collected silver, but it can be books, dinky toys, etc. I know one septuagenarian who still has every record he ever bought. Because these men have such a great need for the approval they never had, they wear a charming public face, indeed charming and seductive, as befits a hunter in search for his prey, which ranges from anyone who can give him approval to the woman he can devour. For some of these men, their hatred of the mother is so great that they will either have nothing to do with her or continue to have furious rows or, and these are the guilt-ridden ones, continue to dance attendance upon her in spite of the opposition of his wife, who complains that he cares more for his mother than he does for her. The mother's crazy guilt-making action has made him her slave. She is jealous of and cordially hates his wife, who is the recipient of all the buried rage that he was unable to discharge at his mother. 2. I found that women in these early cases also had family histories with common features, though I did not spend much time unravelling them as I did with the bullying male. Once I understood the nature of the problem, it seemed to be more important to get on with the work of empowering the victim sitting in front of me. She usually had a friendly and loving mother, but an indifferent father who did not play his vital part in affirming her as she developed her mature physique during and after adolescence. Because of his lack of interest, he failed to give her the knowledge of being a valuable and successful person that no amount of motherly praise can give. I think that when the father plays his part, there is a father-daughter experience akin to the neonatal bonding of mother and child. I think that this is essential if the girl is to happily complete the transition from adolescence into womanhood. I discovered the importance of this when trying to find out why so many abused women, having told me terrible tales of criticism and violent rows, who had had their self-confidence destroyed, and might even feel that they deserved being treated the way they were because they were such failures, would say, "But I still love him to bits." I took a lot of trouble trying to find out exactly what that meant. What it really meant was the memory of what it was like in the early days when he had been so loving, and she was sustained by the fantasy that it could be like that again. My guess was that if the father had not done his stuff and affirmed the daughter's womanhood, a gap was left, an unfilled receptor site, and that when the right magic words were spoken by the seducer, that receptor site was filled with an accompanying burst of joy, never to be forgot. 3. I got a great deal of pleasure out of helping these women back to life. The psychobabble words are affirmation and empowerment. It meant getting rid of all ideas of success and failure and replacing them with the certain knowledge that you can only do your best, and if that's not good enough, it can't be helped. In any case, we all fail to be perfect, so why not join the club? Then there was the vital business of learning to fight your corner. To stand up for yourself when the criticism starts. This meant learning verbal jiu-jitsu, going with the blow rather than trying to fight back. "You're a XX. Yes, I probably am. Isn't it a pity?" Or, "Yes, I hear what you say, and you are perfectly entitled to your opinion, but as it happens I don't agree with you," and so on. There are many excellent books on assertiveness that are devoted to this topic, and I usually had one I could lend. I don't suppose it's surprising that I rarely got them back. I spent much time making sure that she had a good understanding of his psychology, because this had the effect of helping her to realise that he was in a much greater mess than she was, which did her morale a power of good. At some point the question would arise, shall I or shall I stay? Upon the answer depended the content of the sessions that followed. If she decided to stay, she had to find a way re-establishing a life of her own, catching up with family and friends on the one hand, while disregarding the inevitable sulks on the other, perhaps looking for a hitherto forbidden part-time job, planning to go to night school, having a regular night out with the girls. I found that all I had to do was to encourage and be supportive, occasionally acting as the second in the corner giving advice between rounds. Then one day, the work is finished, and with a hug she is off. If she decides that she has had enough, then the feet are firmly grounded, and the work involves the production of the great master plan and much detail. The solicitor, separation or divorce money, where to live, the immediate place to go, the job, etc., etc. As prepared as she can be for a bumpy ride, we say farewell. One lady chose to stay because of the dog. I never knew what the outcome turned out to be.